Alright, so we got the 1084 spoilers, and the immense hype of the reveal of what was going on at the Reverie is continuing here. And like I point out in the title of the video, we are seeing the final boss appear. You know, Imu, the leader of the Gorosei / the world government, the shadow leader who sits on the empty throne. They are making an appearance at the end of this chapter, and they're actually saying words, which is crazy, but we'll get into that later. Before I get into the spoilers at all, let me just quickly go over what had happened at the end of the previous chapter, because it directly ties into what's happening in the beginning of this one. So after Sabo was talking to Dragon and Ivankov, it cut back to a flashback of the Reverie from 1 month earlier, and we saw the commanders attacking. But it was mainly Karasu and Morley taking on Ryokuyu and Fujitora. But while they're taking them on, Karasu's like, hey Sabo, you know, speaking through his communicator, have you found the collar yet? Referring to Kuma, who was still imprisoned at this point. And Sabo says Kuma's moved to Pangaea Castle too. And in this sequence, we also saw Saint Roswald and his son Charlos, and Charlos was like, she will be mine, referencing Shirahoshi, still going after her despite getting knocked around multiple times. Then we cut over to the Nefertari family, and we see Vivi with Lucci saying that, you know, hey, I'm here to protect you. And she's like, yeah, it doesn't look that way. And Cobra starts to approach the Gorosei here. And they're like, only King Cobra is permitted an audience with the 5 elders. So that means Shaka and Pell have to stay behind, of course. And the chapter ended with Cobra saying, this will not take long, but I don't want you waiting around getting bored. So go stand watch over Vivi instead. I can't help but worry over that tomboy daughter of mine. But that brings us to this chapter. Cobra talks to the Gorosei about Queen Lily of Alabasta. She was one of the 20 founders of the world government in the past, but refused to become a celestial dragon. Queen Lily went missing after leaving the country. Cobra asks the Gorosei where she went, but they say they don't know. Okay, so here's the beginning of tons of speculation. But let's just finish these spoilers first, because what happens at the end with Imu is going to tie back into that stuff. So anyway, St. Charlos captures Shirahoshi, but Sai and Leo defeat him and save Shirahoshi. Okay, so like we talked about in the previous chapter, we saw Charlos going after Shirahoshi again, and I guess he successfully captures her, but Sai and Leo, our boys from Dressrosa and the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, quote unquote, defeat him. So they're straight up attacking and knocking out Charlos here, which is punishable by death. Because going back to chapter 1054, which we've talked about many times now, because that's the first time that the Holy Knights were mentioned, this is what they were talking about in that conversation. Because Kizaru was like, can we assume the attempted murder of St. Charlos is solved then? And Aki Inu says, as far as the accusation that St. Mjosgard let the attacker escape, that's being deliberated in the land of the gods. The Holy Knights have intervened, and it's all a big mess now. Let them figure it out. So that's also kind of a spoiler at the same time, because Mjosgard, you know, the original guy who stopped Charlos from taking Shirahoshi, allowed Sai and Leo to escape here. But this is, like I said, such a big deal that now the Holy freaking Knights are getting involved. The guys that we were talking about last week, possibly Shanks or one of Shanks' family members or something like that, maybe. If they're not straight up killing Mjosgard here, they're absolutely going after Sai and Leo, and they might be the first two to job to the Holy Knights here. Like I was also talking about in my review for that stuff. Somebody has to job to them quickly so that we know how powerful they are. And I do think they're good candidates for characters to actually die for once in this series, you know, aside from Cobra. But anyway, Morley frees Kuma, and we already knew that. Kuma, you know, was obviously successfully freed from Mary Joie by the revolutionaries, and he came back to Kamabaka Queendom, but then we saw that he had some kind of, I don't know, Manchurian candidate thing activated in him, and he went back to Mary Joie and started climbing up the red line, and that still hasn't been resolved. But yeah, Morley was the one who freed him, because, you know, he was able to fend off a nerfed Green Bull. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Fume. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. Guys, I'll be straight up. I particularly do not have a bad habit that I would use Fume for. I mainly wanted to partner with Fume for you guys. That's because my demo is 18 to 34. And statistically, a lot of you probably have some bad habits. And you know what I mean. Some of you are really knee deep in those bad habits. And I would really like to help you guys turn those bad habits into good habits. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to use it personally. I mean, now that I have it, why wouldn't I? I really do like the twisting mechanism on this thing. It is kind of like a fidget toy for sure. And now that I've tried it, it's pretty refreshing, like surprisingly refreshing. And as it says here, it pretty much is literally flavored air. Like, I use their white cranberry core and it tastes like they somehow converted a cranberry into oxygen. And trust me, I know stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that that can't be you. So join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/zonin or scan the QR code and use code ZONIN to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code ZONIN to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Thanks, guys. But anyway, here's the big moment, because at the end of the chapter, Imu appears and talks to Cobra, and Imu says, Lily. And there's a break next week, but obviously Imu saying Lily is in reference to what was talked about earlier. So now we know that the ruler of Alabasta, way back in the day, like 800 years ago, was Queen Lily, and that she was one of the 20 founders of the world government. So this happened after the quote-unquote Great War that took place during the Void Century. So after that war was over, these 20 people came together, founded the world government, but then that's also how the Celestial Dragons came to be. And Lily refused to become one, and she went missing after leaving the country. So this could mean a lot of things. Lily was killed, of course, because she didn't want to become a Celestial Dragon. So it's like, if you don't want to be with us, then you just gotta die. Or she survived and she went on to make Amazon Lily, because that's what came to my mind immediately when I saw the word Lily, because that's the only other instance of this word being mentioned in One Piece, right? Amazon Lily. And she is a woman, and she was a queen. So that kind of makes sense to me, right? So that could, in theory, mean that the majority of the Amazon Lilies are actually Alabastians as well. Because as far as I know, the origin of Amazon Lily was never explained. So it's like, why did she leave? Why didn't she want to become a Celestial Dragon? Well, I guess because she didn't want to become a hedonistic sociopath. That's pretty easy, and she saw how they were treating everyone. And I'm sure it had something to do with what was going on at the end of the Great War, or how the Great War ended. Now, another reason I think is probably a pretty popular one is that Imu loved Lily and was forcing Lily to be Imu's bride. And I know that throws a wrench into what I've been saying for years now about Imu being a woman. And that still is on the table, of course, but then again, this is a shonen, and I don't think Oda is, let's just say, adventurous enough to explore same-sex relationships in this series, at least on a big grand scale like this. But I'll just say that not all of the world is progressive as other parts, especially with how they view what quote-unquote children can handle. And I'm just so sure of that at this point in my mind that if we do see Imu being a man, I'd be shocked by it. And I assume that Oda may have changed it because Kishimoto beat him to the punch with Kaguya from Naruto. But hey, what do I know? Maybe Imu was a man the whole time, you know, because why not? Patriarchy, let it rule. But besides that, I totally am on board with Queen Lily of Alabasta creating Amazon Lily. And then this could be the whole trickle down thing that we're going to explore later on in the series, most likely. And it's that the women of Amazon Lily are directly tied to the D's. Because I guess there's like a big theory at this point, because the lineage of empresses in Amazon Lily is like Gloriosa. Then we found out that it was Shaki after her, whose real name is Shakuyaku. And then there's like a missing link there. And then after her, that was, of course, Hancock currently. And the missing link is referred to before by Gloriosa when we see Hancock developing her love sickness because of Luffy, where she says, you know, the previous empress died of this disease as well, and the empress before her had the same sickness. I came down with the same disease and left the country, though I survive. And that's pretty interesting what Gloriosa is saying there. Maybe that parallels to Queen Lily. Maybe she had the love sickness for Joy Boy. And maybe that's why Emu did something or forced Lily out or had some kind of beef with her, because Emu also loved Joy Boy, which I've also been speculating about for years. But anyway, this missing Link Empress here is supposed to be Luffy's mom, and that her love sickness was for Dragon, of course, and it mirrors to Hancock falling in love with Luffy. As we talked about before, Oda likes to tell the same story over and over and over again until we understand what the true story is, which will, of course, will be revealed in the final arc. So as it's been hammered home, Luffy is the reincarnation of Joy Boy, passing down the D lineage. So that would mean that this all started with Lily possibly having the love sickness for Joy Boy, and maybe she left because Emu killed Joy Boy or whatever ultimately happened with him, which, you know, like I said, is probably has something to do with an Emu, Lily, Joy Boy love triangle. And then that's supposed to trickle down and mirror to Hancock falling in love with Luffy. And at this point, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Gloriosa is talking about Garp here with her instance of having the love sickness that forced her to leave. But yeah, that's all I gotta say for now. Let's wait for the full summary to be released, hopefully tomorrow. And of course, I will review that, make a video about it, and subscribe for that if you haven't already. Let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.